Ombre is an extremely popular look. If you want to know how to do it, Stephanie's going to show you 3 different ways, techniques, how to get this look right now.
Alright guys, we get a lot of questions about ombres or baby boomers, frombre, whatever you want to call it. And truth is, there's a few different ways that you can get the look. So we're going to go over 3 different options for you guys today. Let's get started. Okay, so for this technique, we're going to do the traditional acrylic ombre. So we're going to be using core white, a little bit of the speed white just to kind of brighten up the tip, and with cover pink and speed clear. So as always, we will start with pushing back the cuticle. I'm gonna grab my medium grit sanding band and turn my E-file up to about 5,000 RPM. And right up around that cuticle area, taking care of any of that growth, down the side, and then just across the whole nail plate. Making sure to get rid of any old product and any of the shine on the natural nail. Grab my swipe and a clean manicure brush. Get rid of all of that dust and debris. I'm going to clean up this free edge just a tad. Grab protein bond and apply protein bond from the cuticle to free edge. And then let that set up for just a minute. And I'm going to come back and do a second coat. Grab one of my forms. When I'm working on myself, I typically pre-pinch a bit more than I do when I'm working on a person. And just rock that right up into place. So now that I have my form on, personally, I like to start with a very thin layer of speed clear. That way I can remove the form when I start to do the ombre part. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pick up a little bit of my speed clear. I'm using a very small amount because I want this free edge to be extremely thin. I don't want it to affect my design at all, but I like to work off of a clear free edge rather than working off of the form when I'm doing my ombres. That way I feel like I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. But again, you don't want this to affect your ombre whatsoever, so we want to make sure that this free edge is literally flush with your natural nail. Just trying to connect it so we have enough to work off of without the form. All right, now I just need to give that a second to set up. I'm gonna take my spatula here just to kind of, same as you would with your gel, just kind of use that to break that seal a little bit so I'm not worried about removing the form and pulling off that very, very thin, delicate free edge I just created. Just gonna pull that down. Okay, so I think you guys can see that on screen. That's literally equally as thin as my natural nail, so I have plenty of room to work with still, and I was able to remove the form so I can see what I'm doing a little better. I'm gonna grab my cover pink and my speed white and core white. I'm gonna start off with my core white. I usually just bring in the speed for the very tip because I like to have a little bit of a brighter tip into the smooth white. The core white is more of like a milky kind of white, so it's perfect for the ombre look. I'm gonna go ahead and pick up a nice pearl of that core white and drain it just a tad. And I'm gonna set that down right here. I'm actually gonna take my brush and go ahead and just lightly brush that all the way up, more than halfway up my nail bed. And you can see it already kind of starts to blend in a little bit. And then just kind of bring the rest out towards the tip. Got a little fuzzy in here, let me get rid of him. And again, just kind of turning my brush around and brushing that back up towards the body. And then this is when I like to use just a touch of my speed white because I do like my free edge to be a bit whiter. Speed white is a very stark white, not milky like the core. So I'm going to take just a touch of my speed white and do the exact same thing and then blend that back into my core. So now I have a very, very smooth transition, which is going to help with the ombre look. I like to take just a touch more of my core and set that down right here in the center, and again just kind of brush that back. The goal with ombres is to have a nice smooth transition point where the two colors meet. You do want to make sure you're trying to work fairly thin while you're doing this, because we are going to encapsulate the transition line in clear. So you don't want a big bulky nail, so be mindful of that while you're working. Okay, I'm going to set my whites aside and grab that cover pink. And go ahead and pick up a nice size pearl. And we're going to set that one down just shy of the cuticle area. And you'll notice I'm angling my finger down so that the product's going to start flowing for me. I just have to tuck it up against the cuticle and then just lightly brush down. Same thing over here on this side, making sure to avoid contact with the skin or the cuticle, and then just lightly brush down. That soft feathering motion is what's really going to give you that smooth blend. Looks like I can use a little bit more right over here, so I'm going to work with a really wet bead. And just go ahead and lay that down where I want the color, and then just feather it down. Okay, so I feel confident in my design. I'm happy with where the two colors are blended. So what I'm going to do is, if I turn it to the side, you can see that I still have a fairly thin amount of product right here and down towards the free edge. What I want to do is apply a nice sized pearl of clear right here where the two colors are meeting. What that's going to do is give me my strength and structure, as well as it's going to protect that transition line. So when I go into filing, I'm not going to remove any of that ombre that I created. So I'm going to grab my speed clear, and I'm just going to pick up a nice sized pearl. And I don't need much towards the cuticle, so I'm not really concerned with that area. I'm just going to set it down right in the center, right where those two colors meet, and release the product. Get rid of those little glitters. And I'm just going to allow the product to kind of work for me. I'm going to gently blend this in towards the back, and then just kind of let the rest flow towards the front. Again, my main focus is that center part, so I don't want to remove a ton of product from there. Just kind of blending everything else in. It's okay if it's a little lumpy and bumpy right now. That's what our electric file is for. All right, I'm gonna allow this a little bit of time to set up. I'm gonna go ahead and file it into shape, and you guys will see the final look. Okay, so for this ombre technique, this is actually my favorite. It's kind of a cheater's method for the ombre, but I just love it. It's really fast for the nail tech, and it's nice for the client too, because I'm sure most of your clients like to change their looks out every couple of weeks. So this design is more of a topical, so you can just zip it right off rather than something you're committing to like a full acrylic ombre. Okay, so what I have here is a sculpted cover pink nail. It is file finished, so I've got as far as my 150 grit file. We have a nice texture left here on the nail, so it'll have no problem with gel polish. I'm gonna take some swipe on a clean manicure brush, get rid of all of that dust and debris and any oil that may have got onto the surface of the nail. I'm gonna grab Protein Bond. Protein Bond over top of an enhancement is just to prevent the gel polish from chipping or peeling. So if you have any issues with that, that would help. So apply Protein Bond from cuticle to free edge. And what I like to use is ManiQ-Sheer Pink 102 or 101. Both are beautiful. They're very, very faint colors. They're not full coverage. They're obviously sheer. The reason I like them is because they're similar neutral colors without being, it's not going to overpower the design, but it's going to give me that tacky dispersion layer that I need to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply this sheer pink from cuticle to free edge. Really just looking to achieve that dispersion layer. To be honest, you could use just your ManiQ base if you wanted, or your ManiQ top, because I did have a neutral color on my nail already. So you would just, all we're looking for is that tacky dispersion layer. Go ahead and get in the light for 30 seconds. And now I have the tacky dispersion layer from my gel polish. What I did in Salon, since this was a frequent design that I did, I custom mixed a pink that I liked. So what I have here is Blushing Girl and Plum from the Young Nails collections. And I did about a 50-50 mix to create a pink that was a little brighter so you guys could see on camera. But in Salon, I had this as just a standard color in my drawer. It was a nice neutral tone. You can create your own, whether you like more nude, more pink, whatever is your preference. It was just something I like to have on hand. And I'm gonna grab my Young Nails Speed White. So what we're doing is essentially just a glitter press without glitter. We're using acrylic powder and pressing it into the dispersion layer. Let me show you. So I'm gonna take my pink mix that I have here and go from my cuticle to about halfway down my nail bed, and then stop, wipe off my brush, grab a little bit of that Speed White, and go from the tip up to about the middle of my nail, and go ahead and dust all that off. And on the first layer, it usually looks fairly faint, and that's okay, because we're gonna do another coat. I take my Young Nails ManiQ top coat. I use ManiQ top coat most often, honestly, just because it cures in 30 seconds. That's the whole reason. There's no other reason. Stain resistant would work in this instance because it has a dispersion layer as well. Any gel polish that has a dispersion layer to it would be fine. I just prefer ManiQ because it dries in 30 seconds, so I can keep moving. Okay, so once I have my top coat on, I'm gonna go ahead and go in the light for another 30 seconds. We're gonna do the exact same thing over again. Personally, I really like to work in the reverse order after I've applied the first coat. This time I'm gonna start first with my white and go from the free edge up to a little past where I went the first time, because again, the thing that creates an ombre the smoothest is to really blur that transition line. So I'm gonna wipe off my brush again, grab that pink, and same thing, cuticle to about halfway. All right, starting to look like an ombre. I'm gonna grab my ManiQ top and do the same thing. Usually at this point, if I'm happy with the density of the color, I'll come back through and at times just kind of bounce my brush a little bit right here where that transition happens, just to smooth it out even more. This technique works with all acrylic powders, so if you wanted to do, like I did a blue to green ombre the other day in the same technique, it worked great. And if you want the colors to be more intense, just continue layering them. So I'm gonna go ahead and go in the light. After 30 seconds, we're gonna come back out of the light. I think I wanted a little bit more vibrant right on the tip, so I'm just gonna do the same thing one more time with my white. Really just kind of focusing right on the tip and just kind of lightly dusting up. Okay, get rid of any of that excess hanging on and do a final coat of my ManiQ top coat. All right. And I'm gonna get in the light for a final 30 seconds. I'm gonna grab my ManiQ cleanse to get rid of that tacky dispersion layer. And there we have a very, very simple ombre. All right, for our final ombre look, we're gonna go with the trusty airbrush. I have a sculpted nail here, file finished at about a 150 grit file. Very important, whatever you're airbrushing onto, whether it be acrylic or hard gel or even gel polish, you want to make sure that you've etched the surface with about a 150 grit file. Using something like a buffer is going to leave the surface a little too smooth for your gel polish top coat to stick to. So in order to prevent any chipping or peeling of your gel top coat, you want to be sure that you have a textured surface. I'm going to take a little bit of my swipe on a manicure brush, clean up all that dust and debris we just made. And I'm going to pull my Young Nails airbrush over. It's already resting in some acetone, so as long as I'm able to spray acetone through, I'm able to spray my paint no problem. Get all that cleared out of there. I'm gonna grab my white. Since I'm only doing one nail, I really don't need a lot. A couple drops is more than enough. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and get my spray going. We're gonna start right at the tip and just kind of work your way up, about halfway up the nail, making sure you get those sides. As I start to feel like I'm happy with my design, what I'm gonna do now is, if you just push the trigger down on the airbrush, you're actually only releasing air. It's when you pull the trigger back that you're releasing your paint. So since there's a lot of paint right here on the tip of this nail, I'm gonna use just the airflow and go ahead and try to help that dry a little bit. You wanna make sure the paint is fully dry before you go into your top coat so that it doesn't have any issues with chipping or peeling. If we were working on all 10 nails, I don't think we would need to do this step, but since I'm just showing you one, I wanna make sure that I'm aware. One thing I would like to point out is sometimes when you're first airbrushing, you can see a little bit of those file lines behind the paint, and you're a little concerned that you're going to be able to see that in the final look. Once you apply that gel top coat, it smooths all of that out and it looks flawless. Now that that's dry and I've cleaned myself off a little bit, I'm going to grab my Young Nail stain resistant top coat and apply a nice healthy amount from cuticle all the way down to the free edge. Making sure that you're very aware to cap those edges. Again, you want to make sure that this isn't going to chip, so you want to make sure that you're very aware of capping your free edge. All right. Gonna go ahead and get this in the light for 60 seconds and we'll get back to you guys with the final look.
Young Nails is committed to giving you the best nail education in the world. Check out more of our videos, head right over here, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and do that by clicking right over here.